Please listen carefully.
Well, Bob, I just learned that your moving truck just showed up at your house.
Yeah, like yesterday. So I'm living in the middle of a bunch of boxes right now. So.
We really appreciate you taking the time. I know you've got a ton of
you.
things to do, and you're being asked to be everywhere in Roanoke at the moment.
Yeah, happy to do this.
So tell us a little bit about where you come from and what your background is.
Sure. So I'm most recently from Texas, so I made sure I wore my boots today. I came from Amarillo, Texas, which is up in the Panhandle. And I would ask, of course, I can't see anybody out there, but I would ask how many people have ever been through Amarillo, Texas. And there's usually one or two that have gone on their way to Denver, usually. It's actually a city of about 200,000 people, 100 square miles, so physically a very large city. Out in the middle of nowhere. It is everything out in that area. I also had worked at College Station in Texas, Texas A&M University there, of course. I'm originally from St. Louis, so still consider the Midwest kind of my home. But my connection back to this area, I guess, is I'm a graduate of the University of Tennessee. So that's my my claim to fame, I guess, in the Southeast area anyway. So.
And now your background is planning, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'm so the degree I got from the University of Tennessee was in urban planning, and that's what I actually did for about the first 10 to 15 years of my career, and then started shifting into management over the last several years.
Have those skill sets kind of matched up with one another as you've done the transition?
Pretty good, I hope. Hopefully it helps me understand kind of how communities physically change and grow, and the role that planning plays in that, and the role that the city can have interaction, and certainly the decision I made to make that choice was a conscious one. I'm not very patient, and I tend to be bossy. And so as a planner, I got tired of going to hopefully there's no civil engineers I'll offend in here, but I got tired of going to the engineers and saying, no, we really can do bike lanes. It's not going to destroy the road, or we really can do a greenway in a particular area. And so what I found was I kept being more and more attracted to getting more and more of those responsibilities kind of under my group, so that I had to do less and less convincing and do more and more actual doing. And that ultimately led me to this role, to where now I find that I'm at the top part of it and I can't do anything myself. So I'm not sure it actually worked out the way I had hoped, but.
Well, and now you had several options, I think, on the table for places to go. And now, what made you think of Roanoke as the best option?
Yeah, when I started thinking about moving on from Amarillo, which is a great place, was a great place to work. We were doing a lot of really cool things in downtown and redevelopment. I had the opportunity to negotiate and we did land a minor league baseball team, start building a minor league baseball stadium, things that you don't normally get to do. So it was not an easy decision to leave, but I really wanted to move into that leadership role, into the city manager. I was the deputy there. And so I had kind of a short list of places that were currently looking and that I would be interested in. Roanoke, certainly one of those. One of the fun things about doing this job is your job search gets to be on the front page of the newspaper everywhere. So it's fun to know, hey, you're applying for this job, so sorry you didn't get it. It's on the front page. So two of the communities that I actually had competed in were in Tacoma, Washington, as well as San Marcos, Texas. San Marcos is between Austin and San Antonio, so two of my favorite cities, two great cities. And ultimately in San Marcos, I actually was offered the position and stepped away from that offer because 2 days from then I was going to find out whether or not I had received the offer here in Roanoke. And really, though San Marcos is a great city, there really was it was difficult, but not that difficult to walk away from that opportunity in San Marcos, because here there was just such a sense of optimism and momentum, and that existed somewhat in San Marcos, but there was still a lot of trying to keep things from happening in San Marcos, and more here, a lot of how do we get things continuing to grow, continuing to move, continuing to happen. And that, coupled with the energy and the really strong working relationship that exists with the council here, really kind of sealed the deal for me and made it, I won't say easy, but easier to walk away from an offer and say, no, I want to take my chances with Roanoke. And then 2 days later, fortunately, they said, we'd like you to come here. So.
Very interesting. Well, it's one of the things that I often wonder about is narrative for that. And it sounds like the narrative in Roanoke was different from the narrative you were hearing in other places. And I wonder, how do you think we go about building that kind of narrative, and what's important?
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. And I'll contrast that with kind of where we were coming from in Amarillo, and then here certainly that narrative there was evolving from a city which had been really struggling for quite some time. Though it was a large city and it was growing because it's in Texas, economically they were struggling, and their downtown was really in bad shape. And it took many, many years to create the narrative to where they could actually be more than that, and to where now the narrative is not about, gee, I wonder if we can do that, to what's next kind of thing. And in a lot of ways, what Roanoke's narrative kind of reminded me of was that they dealt with that position 10 years ago. And so now Roanoke's in this position where we've done so much and we've got such capacity to do things. What else can we do? Can we tackle some of those things, whether they be poverty or whether they be some of the corners of the city that have not experienced that redevelopment? How can we take that energy? How can we take what we've learned and what we've been doing and actually turn it toward those areas, which is exciting. And that's and that narrative part really, I think, can't be overstated too much, because it really is what the community thinks and says about itself. Really conveys not only outwardly to the world, basically what this community is about, but also in a lot of ways decides whether or not that energy is going to exist inside the community and be able to mobilize people or not. And I think Roanoke has that in just volumes as it goes forward.
Well, I can't imagine the dramatic shift you're seeing coming from Texas to here. That there's got to be a culture shock in some ways, and I wonder how do you kind of accumulate yourself to a new place? Is Texas a Dillon's rule state?
No. Texas is probably one of the strongest home rule states in the country, and so largely the exchange in Texas is you get no help. Matter of fact, you pretty much just get hassled from the state government. And in exchange, though, you're pretty much left to do what you want. It was not uncommon, for example, in communities in Texas, you might annex 1,000 acres a year or something. So lots of changes. You can raise your own revenue very easily. So that obviously is one of the shifts and one of the changes here, in trying to make sure how that works within this system. Probably the biggest change for me, not culturally, but for the job itself, is while there's a lot of excitement, a lot of momentum going on in Roanoke, it is set within this context of a state that's still trying to kind of figure out exactly how it's going to recover completely from the recession. And of course, in Texas, you've got this, you might have a community that's struggling or doing well, and it's set within this context, this background of a booming state. And that's a bit different here, is to try to figure that piece out. And frankly, Virginia has held tight to a lot of tools that a lot of other places in the country, partly because of Dillon's rule and partly just because of custom, that I would hope over time they would loosen the reins on those a bit and unleash kind of the creativity that exists within each of their localities and communities, and really trust that the people who are closest to their elected officials can actually make the best decisions on how to proceed and what's in the best interest of their community. Dillon's rule is not going to go away, but I think trying to figure out how to work within that and empower the localities more will be a big deal.
So, we are kind of handicapped by Dillon's rule and by the state. I wonder, how do you balance what the city can do and what government can do, and then what you can expect people in this room and just general people to be doing?
That's a great question, because I think even though, from the government standpoint and maybe ways in which to raise revenue or what laws to pass, Dillon rule certainly affects that. But from the point of sort of mobilizing people in the local community, there's no limitation on that. And that's one of the things I think that the city government can do and has done fairly well in trying to help support that kind of effort and that kind of movement. Because really, I went to one of the first events I went to was a mural unveiling up on 11th, up in the northwest part of the city. That didn't involve any state government, didn't hardly involve any local government other than support with it. And yet that has the potential to really start the momentum of change in that particular neighborhood. And I think the more we can do to nurture that and sustain that and to help that, the further along we can be. And none of that requires any permission from the state. None of that requires us going anywhere and saying, is it okay if we do this? It really is folks like the folks that are attending this event, as well as those in the community, really stepping up and saying, well, we can take care of that. We'll do those kinds of things. And I think some of the items being talked about currently in terms of tactical urbanism or those kinds of things have a good place pretty much in any kind of community, regardless of what their interaction is with the state. And I think that's where the opportunity lies here.
Wonderful. Well, we're so happy to have you here in Roanoke, Bob. And I wonder if you could kind of maybe finish with just what you would say to the people here as they want to create change in their communities or here in Roanoke or wherever that might be.
Sure, and it was good to follow the previous speaker because I'm in this business because I really do have a love for local government as well. I do this because I want to make a difference, and I know everybody here, everyone that will attend this event wants to do that as well. And for me, the advantage of local government and your interaction with local government is, as was mentioned by the previous speaker, it's as close as you can possibly get. And that's what's cool about it is the things that we do have the ability to affect people's lives right here, the people you'll see at the grocery store, the people you see walking down the street. And I think that getting involved in that, both informally and formally, is really critical. Yes, you want to go to the public hearings, and you want to raise objections and concerns regarding those rezonings. That's appropriate. But at the same time, getting out and actually initiating ideas, volunteering, those types of things are just as critical. And again, you have the best chance to make that happen in your local community, in your local neighborhood, versus any place else. That's where you can really make the difference. And I would encourage participation in these kinds of activities, taking away the lessons that are coming from this type of event and seeing what is appropriate to apply here in the local community, and then just go out and do it. That's really the key, is just make it happen. That's the beauty of doing things at the local government.
Well, very good. That's what we're all about here, getting out and doing it. So thank you so much, Rob. I personally am very excited to see what you come up with here in Roanoke, and I think I speak for all of us with that.
Great.
So
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Of course.